Man, I really wish these Karl Jobst Wata videos took into account this key fact. Stick with me. Hello to all my retro game family, graded game friends. How is everybody doing today? Before I get started with this video, please hit that subscribe button if you like what you hear, the like button, and a little tappity tap on the notification bell so that you are notified every time we come out with a new video. Before you lose your mind in the comments section, let me first kind of explain the conversation angle that I want to take with this video. Because first off, I have to say that I really enjoy Karl's videos, these Wata videos. I watch both of them, and let me just say that I think that they're very well done. And I don't think that he's coming from some strange place to where he's trying to get one over on anybody. I think that some of the points that he makes are very interesting. I am not a judge, jury, or any of that. So I want to separate that conversation from this conversation. So this is not going to be a video all about whether Karl is right or wrong about the history of Heritage or Wata games or any of that stuff. I want to focus on just kind of a key point that I think is important within this ecosphere, this ecosystem between gamers and game collectors. Because there's some important, I think there's some important pieces that are being missed here when I see kind of both sides arguing about all of this stuff. Something that I've noticed is as a game collector, I'm a gamer, meaning that I like to play games, and I'm really focused around retro games. I like playing the stuff from my childhood, the original NES stuff, Sega Genesis stuff like that. I don't play, the new games. My son has some of those. I play with him a little bit, but look, a lot of it's way over my head. I focus on the retro stuff. I also collect graded games. I collect them because they make me happy, frankly. They're great display pieces. They bring me back to a time when I was a kid, some really fun nostalgia, and then at the same time, I think that they are an excellent store of value, kind of long-term holds for me. So I am speculating that they at least kind of hold their value with kind of small gains over time. This isn't, a to the moon type thing or it's got a 10x or 100x in the next couple of years, which seems to be kind of the norm with everything these days, or at least for expectations, but that's not why I'm collecting games. Many of you out there are just gamers that don't collect anything. And so that's where I think we get a lot of kind of the pitchfork folks that are like, yeah, get them, graded games are dumb and this and that and whatever. The reality is that you might not collect anything. You might not be a collector of not just games, but really anything at all. So this is completely over your head. Not even do you think that, collecting games is dumb, but you don't even really collect anything. So it makes sense that this wouldn't be up your alley. This wouldn't be something that you would really understand or care to understand. It might be a reason why you just look at a headline and just say, that's stupid. I think that, it's kind of like what we do in society. We see a headline and it's always kind of like, oh, okay, that's probably right. Instead of really digging deeper into all of it. So I think that you have to understand whether you like to collect games, graded games, sealed games, CIB games, whatever it might be. Just because you don't doesn't mean that someone else doesn't. The fact of the matter is that sealed game collecting and CIB game collecting is not going anywhere. It is here to stay. Now, of course, there's going to be market ups and downs and different things, whether you're collecting modern games, ultra modern games, vintage games, or retro games, or whatever it is, but it's not going anywhere. It's just not. This was cool before six-figure sales. I had heard about this, even though I wish I had bought in when I had first heard about this in the beginning of 2019. It was the first time I ever saw a graded video game, and I thought it was cool, but I have been so focused on graded comic books and graded sports cards. Graded video games was just another thing. Now when I look at the prices of sealed games, man, I wish I would have bought some more back then in 2019. But the point is the first time I saw one, I was like, man, that is really, really cool. And it wasn't Wata, it was a VGA game, was the first one that I saw, and I kind of kept some tabs on it. But again, never got into buying sealed games just because I was just spread too thin with other things. I think that's a key point. Six-figure sales might be great for news articles or whatever, or maybe it gets people to think like, that's interesting that people are paying six figures for a video game, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's where people are like, oh my gosh, that's amazingly cool. That's the only reason. Because I thought they were cool before we ever even saw six-figure sales or seven-figure sales now of certain games. The rise of collectibles as alternative investments as a whole really can't be ignored. Whether you're talking about games, sports cards, comic books, there's just many different things, and there is demand for this stuff. There is organic demand for it. Video games is a newer market, so of course there's going to be bumps and bruises along the way. Access to these items and technology are making it possible for people to get their hands on these things and really appreciate them. Despite knocks on certain parts of Wata's grading, they offer a good product, or they wouldn't be popular. And frankly, I like VGA. I also like Wata graded games. And look, grading companies make mistakes. PSA, the largest sports card grader in sports cards, they've been around for almost 30 years. They graded their first card was a Honus Wagner that was trimmed that they had graded. They have grading companies make mistakes. So there will be little bumps and bruises along the way. It's never going to be perfect. And sometimes when I see kind of the reactions from people, I can just tell that they have not been operating in this space, or they don't collect other things. They don't understand that this is kind of the way that things work. Now, look, a lot of times companies will fix if they make a mistake. They've got insurance for it or whatever the case may be. I can't speak for any particular company if that's their policy, but these are things that come with the territory within the collectible space with third-party grading. In many cases, third-party grading within the collectible space is still in its infancy, whether we're talking about sports cards who've had third-party grading for 30 years, coins as well. Video games is a new thing. There's VHS that's now being graded. I don't own any VHS, but it's interesting. But the point is that you can't just grade, widgets. You can't grade plastic plates and everyone's just going to love that. There has to be something behind it, and there is genuine interest and demand for it. It does have some organic interest in it, organic collectability. And I think that there's an assumption that because right now you have a certain set of collectors like, there's only so many people that will pay this or that for whatever. They're not taking into account that there are new collectors being born every day. There's people that are learning about this stuff as time goes on. I have friends that reach out to me that are like, oh my gosh, I just learned about this graded video game thing, or this, they're actually grading certain types of sports cards. I have friends that didn't even know they were grading sports cards. And that's how I was when I got back into this 3 years ago, when I got back into collectibles beginning of 2018 with sports cards and comic books. I was looking at it like, what? There's graded copies? What is this? Because when I was collecting in the late 80s and 90s, junk wax era or junk slab, not slab era, but, the junk comic book era, whatever, they didn't have graded options. This wasn't an option. They were all raw copies of everything. And so it's all fairly new. And so, yes, is it highly speculative as far as, how much stuff costs and where everyone's spending their money? Of course. Yeah, absolutely it is. And if you're buying in to just do quick flips, and I would say that's very highly speculative. Also, you might think it's a cool display piece like what I have up here. People walk in here and they're like, what? This is incredible. This is like all of the nostalgia stuff in one place. I'm like, yeah, this is like my little, my zone. I believe we're also going to see these companies improve. I think that, not just Wata or, VGA is going to come out with population reports, but, VGA was just purchased as well. So, Wata was bought by Collectors Universe, or the company that owns Collectors Universe. They're going to be improving. VGA is going to be improving. I've been in contact with folks at CGC Video Game Grading. I hope to have an interview with some of these guys here soon, but they are also coming. They are coming. So there are going to be options and competition in this space in the same way that we have in sports cards now, where you've got multiple companies that are long-standing companies. I would say is if you're looking to get into collecting games, educate yourself and look into all these different things. If you're a gamer, then you're a gamer and you're not collecting these, and it doesn't pertain to you. It doesn't have any impact on you. It's not as if sealed game collectors or CIB game collectors are taking away inventory for you to be able to play the games. If you want to play an NES game, you can just go buy a cartridge loose. You can go, if you want to, read a manual, you can just go buy a loose manual. And in many cases, some of them them are pretty rare, a little bit more expensive. But the point is that it's out there. It's not like, a sealed game collector or even a CIB game collector is really taking anything away from you in most cases. I know there's probably rare games out there that maybe there's exceptions to this rule, but for the most part, these folks aren't stepping on the other folks. So there really shouldn't be that much. I don't see how there's really an issue there. Do you think that the sealed and CIB video game, graded video game space is here to stay the way that I do? And I know that I'm an optimistic guy and I really love this stuff. And it's not just for the nostalgia's sake. I really do feel like it is going to be a good store value for me as I'm buying these things. And granted, I'm looking for deals. I'm not buying a $10,000 game or a $50,000 game or $1 million game. I'm not operating on that higher end of the spectrum. I'm just buying stuff that I think is cool within a price point that I feel is fair, and that's it. Thanks very much for joining, guys. Stay healthy, stay awesome, and I will talk to you again later.